Hello, hello.
Hey, everyone.
This is our first podcast, and really wanted to put this out there to just share our experiences. My name is Stephanie. This is my son, Vincent,
Hey.
and he just turned 16 in November. And we've been talking about money for a while. Like, how old were you, or what? Like, how old do you remember being? Like, what's the youngest you can remember about and talking about like money and chores and allowances and all of that? Do you remember?
Probably around like 10 or 11, I'd say.
Really? Because we've been doing it longer than that.
Really?
Oh yeah.
Maybe at the youngest 9.
Okay.
Maybe.
So I think it would be super helpful to like think about share our story as far as where we started. Obviously he doesn't remember the early years of what we've been doing, and where I started was actually his dad started giving him an allowance when he was a toddler. He was like super little. Yeah. Daddy was giving you like $1 a week. And I didn't know how long this was going. You remember that now?
I remember.
And I found out and I was like, why are you giving him $1 a week? Like, for what? And he goes, well, because he's doing really good he cleans up his toys and, he's a good boy. And I was like, that's not why we give money. And so I wasn't opposed to giving money, but I was like, okay, this has got to be meaningful. We need to use this as a tool to help him learn what it means, what money means. And, don't expect that it's just going to be handed to you. And so, and then as far as like, you were already like cleaning up your toys anyway, because that was just a part of the routine, right? So, it was you eat and then you have your wake and your playtime and then you'd have nap time. And we would just repeat that process. And so that comes from On Becoming Baby Wise, the best book ever. So if you're just starting out with kids, or if you've had a hard time getting your kids to sleep through the night and that kind of thing, On Becoming Baby Wise, that's a huge book. So anyway, so it was just a part of wake time was, okay, we're getting ready for nap time. You need to clean up your toys. And so Daddy was doing $1 a week. And so I think we started out with, okay, if I'm going to do an allowance and I want to make it meaningful, then we need to attach it to something and discuss what that means to you, and that you're not just automatically getting $1 for what you're already doing. And there's going to be expectations. So now that I've described that, does that ring a bell?
Yeah, that rings a bell.
Yeah? Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. So let me see if I can present here. I want to give an example of what this looks like. Now, this is an old schedule because this is the only one I could find on this computer. Let's see, present. I have never done this before. So let's see how this works. Maybe you can see it. I don't know.
Maybe.
I think it's working. We shall see. But what I did is, this is going to be more complicated. Yeah, this is going to be more complicated. Oh, wait. No, there we go. This is just a part of the process, people. Like, we got to learn how to use technology. Okay. I think you might be seeing an old schedule of Vincent's chores. And this may look like a lot, but and I do have, look at this, it goes way back.
Oh,
Look, 2020. Here we go. Ooh, that's a mess. We don't want that one.
no.
Yeah. Apparently I played with this over time. There was versions. Okay, so let's get to the nicer, cleaner version. So I came up with a list of all the things that needed to happen in the house. And this is developed over time, depending, because we want to make it age appropriate. So the first thing is to come up with, depending on what age your child is, maybe you just start out with 2 or 3 things and then you build on that as they get older. I remember one of the first conversations we had was where you were asking for more money.
Yeah.
And he's like, I don't have enough to buy this Lego. I want more money. And I go, no, that's not how it works. If you want more money, I am willing to consider that. But what are you going to do for that? And the thing is that he hadn't even been doing some of these chores for very long. So I was like, you need to demonstrate that it's not just doing the task, but without being reminded, and you're getting all the areas and then you're putting everything back. I had to get really detailed with this because he would just, for dusting, for example, he would just get the dust towel and spray it, and then he'd just wipe the open spaces, and that was it. Like, he didn't really take much care in it. He didn't pick up things and dust underneath or behind. And then he'd leave the rag in the dust can somewhere. So it was like, look, you have to see it all the way through. If you go to work for somebody, they're going to expect that you're doing quality work, not just that you've checked off a box that you've done it, but is it done well? Take pride in what you do, right? And so there were lots of conversations about, okay, you did it, you get part credit, but is it good? Did you actually clean everything? Are there still fingerprints? Are there, did you do inside and outside and under the lid, and, all these different things where, as I was watching what he was doing and giving him feedback on it, we had to keep fine tuning how much of that is what he's making, that works towards building a good work ethic, I guess. Right. So it's still kind of a struggle.
What do you mean? Way better than March of 2020.
Yeah, you're way better, but I still have to remind you on some things.
I have a lot of work, plus I'm in 10th grade.
You're in 10th grade now. That's true. So as he got older, what we started doing too is looking at, well, if you want to, because he would get tired of doing the same chore. Right. And so he's like, I don't want to do this chore anymore. And so then I said, okay, well, here's all of the stuff that needs to happen. What other things do you want to do in place of that? And you would get so mad. You would get so mad. And I was like, look, bottom line is the stuff still has to get done. And whatever you don't do is, that means I have to do it or daddy has to do it. So we're all contributing to this household. Let's not forget that you could still be doing these chores and not get paid. So, because I think, and tell me, chime in, feel free. But I think part of this was where you started to feel entitled to the money. Like you just expected to get paid no matter what. And it's like, no, you're not going to just get paid no matter what. You actually have to contribute and do a good job. And this is to teach you how to manage your money.
I don't think I was exactly entitled to it.
Okay.
Maybe.
Okay. Well,
But,
maybe not.
But I did understand that I had to do it if I wanted to get some amount of money.
Right. Yeah. There was a point where, so this gets me to the next, I guess the next phase of this, right, is that you come up with these, whatever list that you want to come up with and put whatever dollar amount that you want to put on it. And I think that, what was super helpful in that document was checking it off, right? So there comes the accountability part of it. So it's not enough to just assume that they're doing these chores because they could forget, they've got a lot going on, but going back through and saying, okay, did you do it? And did you do a good job? And if you're not going to, so this is a thing that came up. He was like, well, I didn't do it, so just deduct it from my pay. Remember that? You still do that on occasion. Like, all right, that's fine. I don't need to get paid that.
I still would like to have the money.
No, but like if you didn't have time, or you felt like you didn't have time, or if you didn't feel like doing it and you missed it, then you were just like, well, deduct it from my pay then. Because I would say, look, you have to do it. I'm not going to keep paying you when you're not doing the things that you're supposed to be doing.
Oh, yeah, I did say that.
So he'd be like, well, just deduct it then. And then it was like, just deduct it. Like, how much is it anyway? Oh, it's $1.25. Not a big deal. Just deduct it. So then I was like, wait a minute. A job isn't going to put up with that, right? A company that you're working for, if you do not perform what is expected, and you keep doing that, then they are going to eventually fire you for non-performance. You've got to perform. That's why you're there. That's how you add value. And so, so we'd have the conversation then that I don't have to pay you anything and you can still do the chores. And he doesn't like that. But that's been like early on. I would say probably the last couple of years you've been really good. But the thing is now he's 16. So I don't want to get ahead of myself. I do want to focus on some of those early lessons that we learned or that we went through. And, there was where we started, where Daddy was giving him money, even though he wasn't doing anything. And so I developed the chores list and put amounts to each chore. And the amounts that I put to each chore were based on maybe difficulty, whether he'd want to do it or not. So if it was something that was a little bit harder, probably something that he didn't want to do, I'd put more money to it, because then it's like, okay, well, I want to incentivize you to do something that you wouldn't really want to do, but it's more money. So now maybe you're more willing to do it. Right. So, I thought for sure he wasn't going to clean the toilets, and he does. He still does. He does a good job for the most part. So, yeah. Okay. And we've talked about quality, right, versus just getting the job done. I think that all of these types of the topics that we're touching on, I'm focusing on what would it be like working for someone and what they're willing to put up with. But the thing is that translates to owning your own business as well, because if you're not getting the results that you need to be successful, you have to go back and figure out why. What kind of output are you, like, what are you putting into it to get the output, right? And so the quality is important. The other thing that we built into this was setting goals. And the way that we did this was through jars. So he has a jar for each goal. And what we would do is he would we would go online and look through books and stuff, and he would think about what kind of goal that he was going to set for that particular jar. And then what did we do?
I'm drawing a blank here.
Print a picture.
Yes. Oh yeah. You're making me draw a blank on this.
Sorry.
We haven't done drawers in a while.
I know.
But we would print a picture of the thing that I would want, and then we would tape that picture to the jar. And once I would get my allowance, and let's say I have like 4 jars and a goal per each jar. I have my picture on each jar that I have for that certain goal. So let's say I have Lego 1, Lego 2, Lego 3, and Lego 4 that I want.
It was all about the Legos at the beginning, yes.
Still is. And once I get my allowance, I would save at least 10% towards my savings. Yes. And the rest I would divvy up towards my jars equally, or as best as I can.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how I divvy up my allowance amongst my jars and savings. Because I always want to have money for my savings. So I can save up for other things, either later in life or just for other stuff that I might need to pay for.
Right. And so very early on, it was 50% was going towards his savings. But as I increased the amount, then I was like, okay, to be realistic, adults are not saving 50% of what they make. So, but a good rule of thumb is to save at least 10% of what you make. And so that always comes off first, right? You always put 10% into your savings, and that has grown into something else as well, which we'll get to. But how did you know how much you needed in that jar?
Well, I needed to know the price of what it would take. Well, let me rephrase that. If I wanted Lego 1, which would be my first goal, it could go in any order if you want. Mm-hmm. But you should go after all of your goals equally as much as you can. If I wanted Lego 1, I need to know the price of it. And once I did, I would also tape the price to the picture as well. So that way I know what I'd want for my goal, what it looked like, and what the price is going to be. And the only thing that I need to do to that goal is just to take action in certain things. So doing chores, saving up, and all that. Mm-hmm. That helped me get to where I needed to get to my goal.
Yeah. So with the dollar amount, what do you remember with what we would do or what we've been doing to figure out the dollar amount? Because you could get a Lego at a lot of different places. So how would you know? And the prices could vary, right? So how did you know which price was going to be the price that you were going to shoot for?
Probably the one that was the cheapest of the other ones. I looked on many other different websites. Usually it was either Amazon or Lego.com.
Yeah.
That was like the cheapest.
Yeah. Okay. So some of you remember Toys R Us.
I love Toys R Us.
Okay. So what did you learn about Toys R Us? You loved going to Toys R Us.
I never had the money.
Well, was it never had the money, or was it something else with their prices?
It was a bit much.
Yeah. So, Toys R Us, great place to go, right? They always had some kind of events going on, and you just, oh man, those doors would open and you'd walk in like you own the place, and you knew exactly which way you were going. You knew exactly where the Legos were.
I knew where everything was at that point.
Oh my gosh. Yes. But the thing is that when we started looking at how much a Lego would cost, for example, we would start with Toys R Us because he loves Toys R Us, but we would see how much that was. And then Do you remember when you first learned about taxes?
I think I do.
Yeah. What do you remember what your reaction was when I said, okay, well, so Toys R Us, this Lego is $100. But it's not just $100 that you're going to write on your jar because there are taxes. And do you remember how I explained taxes to you?
Stupid.
Yeah, he thought it was really stupid. He's like, what? I can't just save $100 for this Lego. I've got to save for $109 because $9 goes to taxes. That's so stupid. Oh, he was mad. He was so mad. And then I was like, okay, well, Toys R Us, if we go to the store, that's one thing. It's $109. But if we have it shipped to us, then there might be shipping costs. So then now it's $120 because we have to add shipping to it. And it's only available online. So then you're stuck with $120 on your jar instead of just the $100. Yeah. You didn't like that. So then where did we go? You said Walmart was, or no, not Walmart. You said Lego.com, but we also looked at Walmart.
You did, yeah.
So Walmart, Amazon, Lego.com. So it depends on the item, right? But you go to all the different sites and you're looking at not just the price, but what are the taxes? What are the shipping? And what we ultimately found most of the time was that Amazon, because of the free shipping, and sometimes they're not charging taxes either. It depends on the seller. So Amazon would tend to be the cheapest unless Lego.com had some kind of special going on, right? So we went through that whole exercise though, right? So you have your jar, you know what you want, you've got that picture, so you've got that visual, and set up the drawers all across the chest of drawers or, you know, nightstand or wherever so that you can see those are the goals you're working towards, right? And then the amount, like you got to know how much that is. What are you shooting for exactly? And it can vary, and you have to know why it varies, how it varies, so that you're getting, you're making the right decision, right? I'm going to go to Amazon to get this Lego because I can get the exact same Lego for only $100 at Amazon, whereas it's $120 at Toys R Us, or, you know, $110 at Lego.com, or, you know, $115 at Walmart.com. So, you know, you want to walk through that process with them and let them see how that works. So the jars, what we would do is every week I would pay him his allowance, and then he'd take out the 10%, put that in his savings compartment of his wallet. And then what did we do with the savings every so often?
Oh, we deposit into a bank.
So we opened up his first bank account. He was so proud. We went to US Bank and opened up his first bank account. It was a savings account you can do with kids. And then you're the guardian, right? And he deposited his first, he saved up $100 in his savings. And then we went and opened up his savings account with that. And then once a month, or obviously it depends on how much he's able to put towards his savings, but every so often, or when you hit the $100 mark, that's what it is. When he hit the $100 mark, then we would go and put that into the savings account. So we talked about like, okay, well, let's check your notes on what you've been depositing against what the bank is showing, right? They call that a bank reconciliation in the accounting world. And because what you show may not necessarily line up with what the bank shows, and you need to know why. Is there something on your sheet that is not on the bank's sheet? And vice versa. Is there something on the bank's sheet that is not on your sheet? And which one is right? Maybe there's a combination of both there. So you want to walk through that process. What does that look like to make sure that You know exactly what's in your savings or what's in your checking account. And we research the cost. We try to find the best deal. So then where this went was some delayed gratification lessons.
Yeah.
I think this was the most painful.
It was, yeah.
So many difficult conversations because he wanted a Lego or a Nerf gun or whatever it was. And he did not understand why he had to wait for it. And so do you want to say what your thoughts were on that? Like, think of a moment when you were really upset about that.
I think there's too many to count.
Pick one.
I don't know. There's too many good ones to choose.
Okay. Well, I mean, the thing is like, he didn't understand why he had to wait. That was the thing. And, you know, it's one of those things where it's like, okay, let's go back to your jar. What does your jar show that you have in there? How much do you have in that jar? Well, you know, it's $15 and the jar is $100, right? Because we figured out Amazon was only $100 for Lego one. Well, you know, he only had $15 and he's like, at this rate, it's going to take me forever to come up with $100. Why can't I have more money? I'm like, yeah, I would love that. I want to have more money when there's more stuff I want to buy, but that's not how it works. You make what you make. And you can't expect that you can just go ask your boss for a raise every time there's something that you want to buy right now because you don't want to wait. That's not how it works. And he was like, well, I'll just take money out of my other jars.
No.
Do you remember what I said about why you can't do that?
Because then you're taking money away from your other goals to focus on one, and then you're gonna have to catch up on those other goals and all that. And then it's gonna take forever to reach all the goals that you want. You're not going after all of them equally. You gotta focus on all of them equally, otherwise you're only gonna do like one at a time.
Mm-hmm.
And it's gonna take forever to go after those others if you don't have any money left over for those goals.
Right. Yeah. Yes. Oh, those were some painful conversations for sure. And the thing is that, you know, when I related it to when you grow up, I was like, okay, so right now these are all Legos or Nerf guns. Maybe it's not a big deal to do that right now. But the thing is that the whole purpose of going through this process is to prepare you for when you are grown and you've got multiple goals. One of those goals could be buying a vehicle. Another goal could be paying the insurance on that vehicle. Another goal could be paying your utilities. Another goal could be paying your rent or your mortgage. You can't take money from your mortgage to pay for your car payment and your insurance because then you don't have a place to live. You cannot take from one to put towards the other because you don't want to wait. You've got your plan and you basically want to break the plan, skip the steps, and just get to straight what you want to do. And you can't do that. That's not how it works in the real world. Or if you do it, it's not going to work for very long. You're not going to be successful. And so over time, do you remember what happened after a while when you would be saving towards jars? And then sometimes you didn't, what would happen? Like sometimes your jars would change. Why did they change?
It doesn't really feel like going after that goal after all.
Dun, dun, dun. I was like, dude, you just saved yourself $100 because you didn't want it that badly, did you?
After all, no, I didn't.
Exactly. Delayed gratification. You end up finding out that maybe that's not something that you wanted after all. And so now your goals have changed. And so it's like, okay, well, yeah, I'm perfectly fine with you changing your goal, because you've had this goal for a while and you've outgrown it, or it's not something you need anymore. Like, what are the reasons why you want to change your goal? The biggest reason why he would change his goal was because it was something he ended up not wanting after a while. Even after the arguments about why can't he just get it right now and take the money from the jars. After, and I was like, you literally, I remember having a conversation once where it was like, you've saved yourself hundreds of dollars by waiting, by having that delayed gratification. There are all these things that you would have bought, that you would have played with for a few days and then moved on, gotten over it, and the money's already gone. So the delayed gratification, that was a huge thing. Sticking to the goal as far as making sure that you have that money based on your plan and not trying to pull it from your other goals, right? And then, yeah, eventually maybe you grow out of that goal, or that's not something you need anymore. So now you can replace that with another goal, especially as kids are growing up. They're going to be changing what their interests are, at times. And so you got to be able to adapt the goals to that. So sticking to the goals until you reach them, saving at least 10% before you divvy up the money across the other jars. I think one thing that also came up was you mentioned spreading the balance of that money across the jars evenly. That has come up as over the years, is like, well, does it have to be evenly across all the jars? Remember that? So what have we talked about with that? Like, do we always spread the money evenly across the jars, and why?
Well, it's not a bad idea, I'd say, to spread them all across evenly, the jars. But if you have one goal in particular that you mainly want to focus on, instead of saving 25% across all the jars, do mental math here. What you can do is you can save like the money that you make. You can save like 40% to that one goal you want, but 20% to each of the other jars. So you're still going after the other goals, but you're still saving a little more to the one that you really want. But it's still not a bad idea to either spread them equally or a little different from each one.
Maybe if you're just starting out, it makes it easier to spread it out evenly across the jars. But then as they get older, you could be like, okay, so, what would be the criteria for putting a little bit more towards this particular goal versus the other goal, right? Establish some criteria on that. And then you can go from there as far as like, okay, well, this is why it's important to put a little bit more towards this goal versus the other goals. But I'm not stopping contributing to those other goals. I'm still doing something with those other goals because, again, as an adult, the bills still have to get paid, right? So it helps to keep that going. So with the savings, as he got older, what we started looking at was investing, right? Because when you're saving your money in just a regular savings account, you're not really getting much of anything on that, especially these days, right? So it's like, well, how can you make more from the money that you're saving? And so what we started out with looking at was it's the stock market, right? So we talked about like, what are some different companies that you can invest in? And what was the first one that you wanted to invest in? We didn't do it, but you wanted to.
Was it Bungie, I believe?
No.
That was it. Bungie's a private company for video games.
Right.
Toys R Us. Toys R Us.
Toys R Us. Toys R Us.
Yeah.
Thank God we didn't.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. He wanted his first, we talked about what a share was, right? A stock or share in a company. And that means that when you buy a share, and they all have different values to them for different reasons, then what you do is you become an owner in that company. And so with having ownership of that company, hopefully you're getting some dividend payouts from that. And when you get dividend payouts from that, then you can choose to reinvest those dividends so that you're buying more and more shares of those stocks in that company, and you become a bigger shareholder. And so, yes, Toys R Us, Bungie, I know you mentioned as well. There were different ones that he mentioned that he wanted to invest in. And I was like, well, let's think about where we really want to put the money. Just like where we were shopping for our jars, we want to shop for what kind of investments make the most sense. And looking specifically at the stock market at that time, we want to pick stocks that have a good dividend payout, right? They have, I mentioned price to earnings, but that's a lot for a kid, especially when we were first having this conversation. So it's like, what's the history of this stock? Have they been around a while? Are they very stable? Because, this is his savings and he doesn't want to just lose it immediately. We want to put it in something where it's going to be stable for him. And so what we ended up going with was, where's your shares? McDonald's. How did he forget?
I haven't been updated on my investments, okay? You haven't updated.
McDonald's was your first share, dude.
That makes sense. I even blow it up.
Oh my gosh. So we're almost done, I think. Yeah. So the McDonald's share was the first one because they've been around for a long time. They're stable. They check all of the check marks as far as like where you'd want to put for something stable, right? You're not looking for anything high risk. And they had a good history of dividend payouts and so on. And so, and I wanted to pick something that would be of interest to Vincent that he could relate to, because it's hard for a kid to think about a share or an investment. What does that mean exactly? And so every time he walked into McDonald's, what did you do? He was walking around. He's like, I own this place.
Like one share.
I own this Happy Meal. I own these chicken nuggets. You're walking to the play area. I own this play area. It was so cute. And I go, well, you have one share, okay? Like, it's not a ton, but it's a good start, right? And we set it up so that it automatically reinvests in those dividends. So now it's more than one share in McDonald's. So yes, so we've spent some time here going through how we started with how we structured his chores, and what an allowance would look like, and really trying to build in some life lessons in that, not just giving money every week, but really looking at how does money work and what you can do with that money eventually, right? You build up your savings and you can invest some of those monies so that you're earning more money. Now, this year, actually, Vincent just finished doing a stock market project at school. And do you want to share that, or?
Sure, I'll share.
Yeah. Okay. So we're going to share. Let's see if I can get to that now. And here, I know what. This is all new to me. I don't see. Is it supposed to be here? Oh, no. I don't see it here.
Hmm.
Okay. Well, we don't have to share your presentation. Why don't you just tell us about it?
All right. So, what the presentation goes over is it first goes over the several different companies I chose to invest in. And I'm just explaining, not in chronological order from
Right.
beginning to end, but just what it includes. So it includes the companies I invested in, it includes the savings account that I chose to save some of my money in. And for that specifically, I had to figure out what the requirements were just for a standard savings account. So I put down the requirements for that.
Okay.
I can't remember off the top of my head, but
Well, it's U.S. Bank, right?
Yeah.
Which is where you opened your savings account anyway. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
So
you're good.
So it wasn't just investing in some companies and savings. It was more designed for like a real life type of thing, of course. I mean, it's investing in actual existing companies, not just some fake ones that we came up with.
Okay.
So from the beginning of the presentation, it goes through my first 6 companies at initial investment. Then after that, I am pretty sure that is my savings account, which I chose to save my money in U.S. Bank using a standard savings account. Then after that, there was the emergency fund I had actually set aside, which was $1,000. That was for if any accidents had happened in any scenario. And yeah, an accident happened. So there was an oops moment, as my economics teacher called it. And what happened specifically for me, he basically decided everyone's fate by rolling a die for certain things that happened here and there. And I'll just say I lucked out. Long story short, for the oops moment, what happened was that one day I decided to back out my driveway, so I decided to use my parents' car. And before I continue any further, this is all hypothetical.
No, you didn't actually do this.
So one day I decided to back out of my parents' driveway, so I got in their car, and my parents were with me in the car. As I backed out, I heard a crunching and muffled cry, and realized I had ran over grandma bikes a lot. I did not come up with that name; my economics teacher did. But the point being was that I basically ran over her, not completely, but in the panic, I pulled back into the driveway, totaling the bike and somehow hitting my mailbox. And the total cost of damages around was like $1,450, but my parents decided to file an insurance claim, so it covered the majority amount, and all I had to pay out of my pocket was $290, which was a lifesaver because I saved around $1,000 on the side. And again, none of this actually happened. And before I continue further, I think the total amount of money I had, like just fake money, not real money, was around like $17,500. This is just a rough estimate.
Okay.
But continuing forward, I saved around, I think, a maximum of 15% of the money I could that I was allowed to save towards my savings. 7% of that total money was used towards fun money. So I bought myself like a grand piano bundle that obviously included a grand piano.
Nice.
I bought a Lego Lamborghini, and I bought like another Lego set. I can't remember it, but I know I bought one. And our money saved for fun money, the leftover amount had to be under $1. So, I mean, you can spend whatever fun money that you want to spend it on, but it's just a requirement for the project.
Yeah.
There's a lot of requirements for it. So some things are realistic, some things are not. But I had to do what I had to do to get hopefully a good grade. I didn't get my grades yet. Fingers crossed.
Do you remember how much you ended up making or losing from what you did with the stocks?
After I had sold some companies and invested in some new ones later on, and then eventually selling them all, I had made a profit of $1,763.08.
Okay.
Which was pretty good, I'd say.
Yeah.
I didn't lose anything, thankfully.
Didn't lose. Right. So every day as a part of this project, you were tracking your stocks. Was that part of it, I think? Because I remember you looking.
I was tracking the previous close of every Friday and Monday.
Okay.
And if I wanted to sell something or buy something, I had to do the previous stock of the day before or the existing day. If there was a previous close that day when I was buying at the time.
Right. And so one of the things that we talked about was how crazy those stocks can be, right? They really fluctuate, and they can fluctuate from day to day, week to week. So,
especially Tesla. That was one I invested in. I invested in around like 217. I had 12 shares. The day before we sold all of our stocks, Tesla was at like 251, and I had 12 shares, so I was doing pretty good. Then the day we sold them, it went from 251 to 229, and I'm like, wow.
Oh,
I still made profit, but not as much as I had
to. And so, like, what would be a lesson learned from that with the way stocks are fluctuating? Like, is that a good place to put your money?
Not really, no.
Right. Not a good place to put all your money, at least, right? You have no control over what's happening with those stocks. And so that's something that we've talked about is like, do we really want to put more of your savings into the stock market, knowing that it's fluctuating the way it does, and you have no control over what's going on? There can be stuff happening at the macro level that, throughout the world. It could be the industry. It could be some like a related industry that's impacting that industry. There's so many different things that you have to learn and understand to really even begin to comfortably invest in that and know that you're making good choices for what you really want to ultimately achieve. And so that's a big reason why we have gotten into real estate. So I think that's a good place to stop for this first podcast of our journey. And hopefully we can keep sharing parts of our journey. Maybe the next one can be about what you've learned so far in real estate and what we've been working on lately. So more to come. So if you want to learn more or hear more about what we're doing and Vincent's journey into real estate, then please subscribe. Share this with other parents that have kiddos. You can start very young, like I did with Vincent, and just teaching them about those ideas that we've talked about. And, feel free to put some questions in and reach out. We're on Instagram. I'm on Instagram. Stephanie TFC is my handle on Instagram and Facebook. And Vincent, do you remember what your Facebook is?
That's a good question. I don't remember.
He's got to work on that. We'll put it in there. All right. Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Bye.